Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first event of the SweetSpot series, where we'll be discussing pricing strategies in e-commerce. I hope you had a great weekend. To wait for the latecomers and to introduce us a little bit, maybe I can talk about my colleagues here. Çağatay is the sales director at pricing, and Talat is the customer success manager. I'm working as marketing manager. Hope you will like this presentation, and if you have any questions, we will be taking the questions at the end of the event, but please feel free to write them in the chat or in the questions side box. Today we will be discussing dynamic pricing, and I will introduce the theory part. Then Çağatay will be giving some applied examples, and Talat will walk us through a case study. So let's begin. Dynamic pricing strategy in theory. I'm sure you are familiar with the dynamic pricing, but just to get to the bottom of this, dynamic pricing is the pricing strategy that you can change or determine the prices of your product based on the market conditions. The very first use of the dynamic pricing strategy was applied by the Amazon with the help of their early e-commerce success. And there's even an academic term, the Amazon effect, which will put other retailers on the pressure of the dynamic pricing. When we talk about the dynamic pricing, the two things that come into mind is the price dynamism and the unitary pricing, which means that in the store, it doesn't matter where you sell your product, in the States or the other part of the country, you better do the same pricing for the same product. In the e-commerce world, dynamic pricing gives you the flexibility and agility you need to beat the competitors. And we will be discussing the details of these two parts and how dynamic pricing may help you in this process. So to summarize why you need the dynamic pricing in the e-commerce, just think about your purchase history or anything that you would like to buy online, what you go through. Mostly, it's highly likely that you will go through the price search, whether you can find the cheaper alternatives or the let's say with free shipping, etc. And when you think about that, every shopper in the online world are able to access the price information of the products in many retailers, where they can easily search through either price comparison sites or directly through Google Merchant Center, Google Shopping. And this high competitive world leads to really small margins in the many verticals. Thus, it pushes retailers to do more dynamic pricing strategies. And to attract the most visitors or the customers, let's say, retailers has to compete for the price point in almost every case. And to do that, you need a price intelligence mechanism, which will help you dynamically adapt to the market conditions. And when we talk about dynamic pricing, it's not just about the sales, but it gives also an advantage to you in the marketing side as well. For example, for the price comparison sites, that you will get more visibility, thus more traffic to your store. Or let's say you don't underprice your products in certain categories, so you don't lose money, and you may even optimize your pricing and use that money for other projects, let's say marketing or the customer relationship or the more promotions that you can give away to your customers. If you are able to position yourself with your competitors and understand the purchasing power of your customers, you are able to put your position into the customers' eyes that you are maybe a little bit higher than your competitors, but you give a premium service. Thus, you are able to afford other side of the e-commerce business, let's say the free shipping or the more promotions. And come to the dynamic pricing, the most core part, it's the sales power it gives you. The sales power that can beat anyone prices. Usually, the dynamic pricing was some sort of the giants tool that they can only use because the necessary computing power and the manpower that requires. But with the help of the softwares like Prisync, in today's world, even the small and medium businesses can compete with the giants and do dynamic pricing. And when you think about that, if you are able to give regular promotions or the best price for your customers, shoppers are more likely to return to buy their next need from your store. And by doing so, you improve your business profitability in the long run, and thus able to expand your business in the other areas as well. For this strategy to work, as I mentioned, historically the giants are able to do this because it required the manpower and the computing power. But now with the pricing, you are able to do timely changes without interrupting or without waiting for the manual processes. For 24 hours and 7 days, you can gather intelligence on the market and act accordingly. And you can do infinite number of automations like the cheapest price in the market, or let's say 10% more than your similar competitor, and so on and so on. And for the introduction part, I try to explain why dynamic pricing is a requirement in the e-commerce and how it can help you. Like I mentioned before, if you have more questions, please feel free to add them on the question section or the chat, and we will be answering those at the end of the presentation. Now I would like to give word to the Çağatay to walk you through some applications in the other industries.
Thank you, Türker. Hello, everyone. This is Çağatay speaking. Well, first of all, I would like to thank every one of you for joining this webinar about dynamic pricing. It means a lot for us. In my part, I would like to share some insights with you regarding the dynamics of dynamic pricing in the e-commerce world. And we will take a closer look to this phenomenon on industry level, actually. So the first question that one may ask is that, there are hundreds of verticals in the e-commerce sector, and are all of these industries equally dynamic? Well, that's not the case. Regardless of the industry that you operate in, there are quite a lot of parameters that you need to take into account while dynamically repricing your own products. Your product inventory, the number of SKUs that you sell, the number of competitors that you need to beat in the long run, your target profit margin, the sales volume that you have to hit on each year, each month, each quarter, even each week. So these parameters needs to be taken into account once you consider dynamic pricing. But the coefficients of these variables are not equally the same for every vertical. For instance, in cosmetics and gaming industries, these verticals might act like stock exchange, especially if the e-stores offer highly promotional sales, such as during Black Friday or Cyber Monday. So imagine that you add an item to your cart and you proceed to the checkout window, and boom, the price has changed. So this actually happens. But on the contrary, some industries do not respond to this dynamic pricing phenomenon as many others do. To give you an example, assume that you bought a refrigerator from an online home appliance store or a painkiller from an e-pharmacy. It wouldn't be quite surprising to see that the prices of those products haven't changed after 3 months. So what's the root cause of this problem? Of this difference, not problem? Well, it's for certain that there isn't only one, so we can focus on a few things. The level of competition in your industry might harm your business quite harshly if you do not react to your competitors' pricing, because customers can search and they love to price compare. So you need to stay awake all the time to maintain your competitiveness in the market. Speaking of customers, let's say consumers, they might behave differently from industry to industry. So let's use two examples from my previous slide. For instance, a gamer who would like to purchase a CD key from a gaming platform might want to focus only on the price. And it means that the guy is quite price sensitive. On the other hand, suppose that a newlywed couple that would like to purchase a washing machine might want to make their decisions based on the quality of the after-sales service. So the consumer habits on different verticals are not the same all the time, and the market trends for sure. So if you own an e-commerce shop, you got to be sync with the trends happening in the market. Otherwise, you will be out of the competition in the long run. So as I stated previously, the number of competitors that you need to beat is also a parameter while dynamically repricing your products. But the thing is, the competitive landscape is not equally wide for every vertical. So at this point, I would like to utilize some data that we populate from our client base at Prisync. Furniture retailers and hardware toolware stores mainly focus on a few top competitors. On the contrary, I can say that mobile phone industry, pet supply sector, or e-stores that sell branded fashion goods do have quite crowded competition. So they, adjust their pricing based on quite a lot of different competitors in the market to keep competitive in the industry. So if I were to make a conclusion out of this, so let's say I'm a small retailer in one of these industries, furniture or hardware toolware, then I might need to make many other things, do many other things besides adjusting my pricing. On the other hand, if I'm a small retailer in mobile phone, pet supplies industry, or branded fashion sector, then adjusting my prices, utilizing dynamic pricing to the fullest extent can make quite a difference, and that gives me the chance to beat the giants in the market actually. So the number of SKUs that you sell is also a crucial variable when you think of repricing your products dynamically. For example, in auto parts industry and hardware toolware vertical, there are most of the time there are hundreds of thousands of items that you need to take care in terms of pricing, and that makes hundreds or thousands of different categories that you might need to handle, and it makes your dynamic pricing calculations quite complex. But on the contrary, grocery industry or pharmaceuticals, it would be fair to say that the dynamic pricing dynamics is not that complex, given the fact that the total number of items do not reach to that level most of the time. So let's put a disclaimer on it at this stage. So we talked about many different parameters that have significant effect on dynamic pricing, but we also need to talk about the profit margins in different verticals. So again, I would like to utilize the data that we populated for some of our clients at Prisync. Of course, there also there always needs to be a room for improvement for the sake of my profit margin. But for some industries, that profit margin is quite thin, and that makes every cent important when you reprice your products. Pharmacy, branded fashion sector, the profit margins in these verticals are quite thin. I can, firmly say that. On the contrary, auto parts industry is a bit different, actually. To be honest, I'm no expert in auto parts industry, but it's probably because of the abundance of imitation products or the ability to minimize the cost of manufacturing in today's technological world. The profit margin in auto parts sector is obviously larger than many others. So let's make a quick wrap up on where we need the dynamic pricing phenomenon the most. So it would be quite straightforward to say that we need to take this into account, especially there is a competition on price in the industry that I operate in, and especially the profit margins are so thin. I cannot avoid dynamic pricing at that point. And it would also be crucial to maintain my dynamic pricing activities so that I not only keep my competitiveness in the market, but I also improve my profit margin at the same time. So this is the ideal scenario. So assume that you're an e-commerce owner, web shop owner, and why would you want to leave so much money on the table if there's a strong chance to keep it in your pockets? A pricing intelligence service with a dynamic pricing mechanism will most probably make you a better e-commerce merchant in today's competition-driven e-commerce world. At this point, I would like to give the microphone to our customer success manager, and feel free to drop your questions so that we can talk about them in the end.
Hello, everyone. I'm Talat from Prisync, and thank you very much for joining the webinar. And I'm going to go through one of our users' experience with our dynamic pricing engine, Justus from Australia, and we will look into their experience with pricing. And just a little bit story about Justus. They are 40 years, store in Australia in power tools market, and they have adopted the digital technologies for the last 15 years. And which means that they are selling online for this period of time. And in terms of the power tools market, it is one of the competitive landscapes that we have in the world. It's not just in Australia, but across the world. It's a really crowded market. And as per our users told us that the new competitors, new online stores are popping up in every day in this type of business. So for the Justus, since they are an online store, an online retailer, for deciding their prices, for repricing their product prices, actually, they need to monitor their competitors' prices, analyze the data, and decide their prices. So before using pricing, they were doing this task manually. And as you can imagine, if you are selling hundreds and thousands of products online, that this process is taking a lot of time, and it's a really time-consuming task for them. So for this reason, they just focused on a small number of products that they have, the top products actually they have, and they also focused on their top competitors. And in a weekly basis, they just monitor their competitors for 10 of their competitors' prices with just 30 or 40 of their products. And in addition to that, for making the repricing effort, they were just able to, again, focus on 15, 20 price regions per week. So with this effort, there are actually two main problems. One is the data they were gathering is not reliable, because since this manual work is taking a lot of time, even if they focused on a small number of products, they were just getting this price information in a weekly basis, but their competitors were changing prices actually in a daily basis, and generally more than once in a day. And again, with the same reason, they were not fast enough to respond to needs of a competitive market for changing their prices. So at some point, they decided to automate this whole process from beginning to end. And then they started using pricing for both getting the price information and making the repricing of their product prices. So pricing is, as my colleagues told, automate this whole process from starting to end. And just for the when we look at just the data points that they had after using pricing, from 30-40 data points per week, the assortment they start to work on is increased to 14,000 data points, because pricing is not just giving a price information for the competitors in a weekly basis, but we are giving a price information on a daily basis and 4 times in a day. So the data became much more reliable for Just Tools to count on. And secondly, they were making price changes for some products on a weekly basis, but with pricing, since we are able to, our dynamic pricing engine is able to make price changes and repricing 4 times in a day in a store, the price changes increased to 40, 50 price per day. So it's a really positive effect for an online store on their repricing effect. And at the end, they had a 300% improvement in their time efficiency, because the whole process, since the whole process is automated, their workload is decreased dramatically, as they told us. So. And in general, since Just Tools is an online e-commerce website selling online, the end result can be seen on the sales and revenue growth of their products. So we sat down with them and looked into their data together, and we seen that the pricing has a great effect of their sales and revenue growth on this period of time. And with the sales growth, they had, pricing almost tripled their growth rates from 3% to the more than 8% growth rate they get. And in terms of revenue, actually, we look into the 6 months, growth period before they start using pricing, and 6 months growth period after they start using pricing, and there was a 5.5 times increase in their revenue growth, and it's a really, incredible number. And in addition to that, they were just using one of our standard premium plans, and they were just paying $129 per month, but their revenue increased in a monthly basis is $13,000, which is a really, again, incredible effect, as they told us. And with this regard, the return on investment that pricing delivered to this user is also really great. It's actually 38 times. So for all of these reasons, if I sum up this points, they decreased their teams workload on dynamic pricing, the workload on repricing, or monitoring their competitors and getting the data. They had a more reliable data about the market, and at the end, they increased their sales and revenue based on this dynamic pricing strategies, because they started to act intelligently and more strategically on their pricing policy. So, and we have been working with them for a long period of time, and I believe we will do this for a long period of time in the coming future as well. So, thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, we will look into the chat and questions parts right now.
Thank you, Talat and Çağatay. It was wonderful to listen both of you. We are waiting for the questions. In the meanwhile, I would like to, just remind you, if you don't have questions right now, but come something into your mind, I will be sharing our the event calendar, so that you can reach out our sales team and ask about anything. You can also find us at our homepage and ask any questions that you would like to have. I see that there is one question coming up. In the meanwhile, feel free to answer the poll that we publish. We would like to learn how many products that you list in your store.
Oh, we have 2 at the same time.
Yeah.
Çağatay or Talat?
So let me answer the first one. Burj asked if we recommended this approach to Shopify merchants. Yeah, sure. Actually, one of our main focuses is to help Shopify merchants to automate their dynamic pricing activities, since we do have a Shopify app that any Shopify merchant can easily download via Shopify App Store. And they can easily set up their accounts by importing them into Prisync, set up their competitor data, and input a few dynamic pricing rules. Maybe they will take this presentation into account while adjusting the such rules, and they can fully automate this process thanks to our Shopify app.
So let me answer the second question. If our competitors with different products and features are totally different, then how price comparison helps? Actually, the price information that you are getting is a product based, and you are able to put the competitors. If you are using Prisync, if you will use Prisync, then you can put the competitors on these products one by one. So the information that you are getting is based on these specific products. So there will not be any problem with that difference actually. And yeah, and also Anush has another question, which is what's your answer towards when a competitor have same product on 5-7 other marketplaces? That's also a great question, and you are able to put the different marketplaces again in the product level. Let's say you have one product on 5-7 marketplaces for the same competitor. You are able to put those product pages, where the price information is available, onto the same product, and then get the price information for them separately for just one product. And I strongly suggest you to use our free trial version to get a more solid information, and we will be helping you out on the process as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all okay.
All right. Thank you for saving some 30 minutes of your time for us. And I hope you enjoyed as much as we do. We will be seeing you in the coming sessions of the SweetSpot series. Thanks again, Talat and Çağatay.
It's our
Have
pleasure.
a good day.
It's really great. Yeah.
Have a good day, everyone. Stay safe.